Matthew chapter 26. And it came to pass, when Jesus had finished all these discourses, he said to his disciples, You know that after 2 days occurs the Passover, and the Son of Man is being betrayed to be crucified. Then there were gathered together the chief priests and the elders of the people in the uncovered courtyard of the house belonging to the chief priest, who is called Caiaphas, and they deliberated with one another with a view to seizing Jesus by craftiness and killing him. But they were saying, Not during the feast, lest there arise an uproar among the people. Now when Jesus was in Bethany, in the home of Simon the leper, there came to him a woman having an alabaster cruse of scented ointment of great value, and poured it down over his head as he reclined at the table partaking of a meal. And the disciples, having seen this, were indignant, saying, To what purpose is this dead loss? For it was possible for this to be sold for much, and the proceeds given to poor people. And Jesus, having come to know this, said to them, Why are you causing the woman trouble? For a munificent service she did for me. For the poor people you always have with you, but me you are not always having. For having poured this ointment upon my body, she did it to prepare me for my entombment. Assuredly, I am saying to you, wherever this gospel may be proclaimed in the whole world, there shall also be told this which this woman did as a memorial of her. Then one of the 12, the one called Judas Iscariot, having proceeded, said to the chief priests, What are you willing to give me, and I will hand him over to you? And they weighed out for him 30 pieces of silver, and from then on he was seeking an auspicious time to betray him. Now, on the first day of bread baked without yeast, the disciples came to Jesus, saying, Where are you desiring that we make ready for you to eat the Passover? And he said, Be going into the city to a certain individual and say to him, The teacher says, My critical epoch-making time is near. I am observing the Passover at your home with my disciples. And the disciples did as Jesus had arranged with them, and made ready the Passover. Now, evening having come, he was reclining at table with the 12 disciples. And while they were eating, he said, Assuredly, I am saying to you, one of you shall betray me. And being grieved exceedingly, they began to be saying to him one after the other, Surely I am not the one, perchance, am I, Lord? And he answering said, He who dipped his hand with me in the dish, this man shall betray me. On the one hand, the Son of Man goes just as it stands written concerning him. But on the other hand, woe to that man through whose agency the Son of Man is being betrayed. It would have been profitable for him if that man had not been born. And answering, Judas, the one betraying him, said, Surely I am not the one, perchance, am I, Rabbi? He says to him, As for you, you said it. And while they were eating, Jesus, having taken bread and having asked the blessing, broke it, and having given it to his disciples, said, Take at once, eat at once. This is my body. And having taken a cup, and having offered thanks for it, he gave it to them, saying, Drink of it, all of you. For this is my blood of the testament, which in behalf of many is being poured out for the putting away of sins. And I am saying to you, I will positively not from now on drink of this product of the vine until that day when I drink it new in quality with you in the kingdom of my Father. And after they had sung a hymn, they went out into the Mount of Olivet. Then Jesus says to them, As for you, all of you will find that of which you disapprove in relation to me, and which hinders you from acknowledging me, thus finding in me an occasion for your stumbling on this night. For it stands written, I will cut down the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered. And after I am raised up, I will go before you into Galilee. And Peter, answering, said to him, Assuming that all will find an occasion of stumbling in you, as for myself, I will never find an occasion of stumbling in you. Jesus said to him, Assuredly, I am saying to you, on this night before a rooster crows, 3 times you will deny me. Peter says to him, Even if it would be a necessity in the nature of the case for me to die with you, I will positively not deny you. In the same way, all the disciples spoke. Then comes Jesus with them to a place called Gethsemane, and says to the disciples, Sit down, while I myself, having gone off to that place, will engage in prayer. And having taken with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, he began to be affected with grief and to be distressed. Then he says to them, "My soul is encircled and overwhelmed with grief, so much that I am very close to dying. Remain here and be watching with me." And having gone forward a little, he fell upon his face praying and saying, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I desire, but as you desire." And he comes to the disciples and finds them dropping off to sleep. And he says to Peter, "Is it thus? Did you not have strength to watch 1 hour with me? Be ever watching and be ever praying, lest you enter a place of testing where a solicitation to do evil may be the occasion which will lead to an act of sin. The spirit on one hand is willing, but on the other hand the flesh is weak." Again, a second time, having gone away, he prayed, saying, "My Father, if it is not possible that this pass by except I drink it, let your will be done." And having come again, he found them sleeping, for their eyes had become weighed down with sleep. And having left them again, and having gone away, he prayed a third time, saying again the same word. Then he comes to the disciples and says to them, "Keep on sleeping now, and keep on taking your rest. Behold, the hour has been drawing near and has arrived, and the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Be arising, let us be going. Behold, he who is betraying me has drawn near and is now present." And while he was still speaking, behold, Judas, one of the 12, came, and with him a large crowd with swords and cudgels from the chief priests and elders of the people. Moreover, he who was betraying him gave them a token, saying, "Whomever I shall kiss, it is he himself. Seize him and hold him fast." And immediately, having come to Jesus, he said, "Hail, Rabbi!" And he embraced him and kissed him tenderly and again and again. And Jesus said to him, "Comrade, upon the basis of a comrade are you present?" Then, having come, they laid their hands upon Jesus and seized him. And behold, one of those with Jesus, having stretched out his hand, drew his sword and struck the slave of the chief priest and cut off his ear. Then Jesus says to him, "Return your sword into its place, for all who have taken the sword shall perish by the sword. Or do you think that I am not able to call on my Father, and he will provide me this moment with more than 12 legions, approximately 84,000 of angels? How then would the scriptures be fulfilled? Because thus it is a necessity in the nature of the case for it to come to pass." In that hour, Jesus said to the crowds, "As against a robber you came forth with swords and cudgels to seize me? Daily I customarily sat in the temple teaching, and you did not seize me. But all this has come to pass in order that the scriptures of the prophets might be fulfilled." Then the disciples, all of them, having forsaken him, took to flight. And those who seized Jesus led him away to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the men learned in the scriptures and the elders were assembled. And Peter was following him at a distance, even to the uncovered courtyard of the house belonging to the chief priest. And having gone inside, he was sitting with the officers to see the end. And the chief priests and the whole council were seeking false witness against Jesus in order that they might put him to death, but they did not find it, though many false witnesses came. But at last, 2 having come said, "This man said, I am able to destroy the inner sanctuary of God, and after 3 days to build it." And the chief priests having arisen said to him, "Are you answering not even one thing? What is it that these are witnessing against you?" But Jesus maintained his silence. And the chief priest said to him, "I am placing you under oath by the living God that you tell us whether you are the Christ, the Son of God." Jesus says to him, "As for you, you said it. Nay, more, I am saying to you, hereafter you shall see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the power and coming with the clouds of heaven." Then the chief priest tore apart his outer robes, saying, "He has by contemptuous speech intentionally come short of the reverence due to God. What need do we yet have of witnesses? See, now you heard his contemptuous speech with reference to God. What do you think?" And they answering said, "He is worthy of death." Then they spit in his face and pummeled him. And they slapped his face, saying, "Declare to us by divine revelation, you Christ, who is it who struck you with the fist?" Now Peter was sitting outside in the open courtyard. And there came to him one, a young female slave, saying, "And as for you, you were with Jesus, the one from Galilee." But he denied before all, saying, "I do not know what you are saying." And after going out into the porch, another female slave saw him and said to those in that place, "This fellow was with Jesus, the one from Nazareth." And again he denied, putting himself under oath, "I do not know the man." And after a little while, those standing there, having come up, said to Peter, "Of a truth, as for you, you also are one of them, for your dialect gives you away." Then he began to be calling divine curses down upon himself, and putting himself under oath, saying, "I do not know the man." And immediately a rooster crowed. And Peter was reminded of the word of Jesus, who had said, "Before a rooster crows, 3 times you will deny me." And having gone outside, he wept loudly and bitterly. Now when morning came, all the chief priests and the elders of the people held a consultation with respect to Jesus in order to put him to death. And after binding him, they led him away and delivered him to the custody of Pilate the governor. Then Judas, the one who had betrayed him, having seen that he was condemned, remorseful because of what he had done, returned the 30 silver coins to the chief priests and elders, saying, "I sinned, having betrayed innocent blood." But they said, "What is that to us? As for you, you see to that." And having hurled the pieces of silver into the inner sanctuary, he withdrew, and having gone off, he hanged himself. But the chief priests, having taken the silver coins, said, "It is not legal to put them into the sacred treasury, since it is the price of blood." And having held a consultation, they purchased with them the plot of ground where the potter dug his clay, as a burial place for the strangers, on which account that field was called a field of blood to the present time. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken through an intermediate agency of Jeremiah the prophet, saying, "And they took the 30 silver coins, the evaluation of the one who has been valued, whom they of the sons of Israel valued, and gave them for the field where the potter dug his clay, according as the Lord appointed me." Now Jesus was stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, saying, "As for you, are you the king of the Jews?" And he said, "As for you, you said it." And while he was being accused by the chief priests and elders, he answered not even one thing. Then Pilate says to him, "Are you not hearing how many things they are bearing witness to against you?" And he answered him not even one word, so that the governor marveled greatly. Now at the feast the governor, according to custom, released one to the crowd, a prisoner whom they were desiring. And they were holding then a prisoner, a notorious one called Barabbas. Therefore, after they had been gathered together, Pilate said to them, "Whom are you desiring that I release to you, Barabbas or Jesus, the one called Christ?" For he knew that because of envy they had delivered him into his custody. Now while he was seated on the official bench of a judge, his wife sent to him, saying, "Have not even one thing to do with proceedings against that just man, for I suffered many things today in a dream because of him." But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds that they should ask for that man Barabbas, and that they should destroy Jesus. And answering, the governor said to them, "Whom are you desiring of the 2 that I should release to you?" And they said, "That man Barabbas." Pilate says to them, "What then shall I do with Jesus, the one called Christ?" They say, all of them, "Let him be crucified." And he said, "Why? What evil did he do?" And they kept on shouting beyond measure, saying, "Let him be crucified at once." And Pilate, having seen that he could effect nothing, but that rather an uproar was created, having taken water, washed his hands in the sight of the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of the blood of this man. As for you, you see to it." And all of the crowd answering said, "His blood be upon us and upon our children." Then he released to them Barabbas, and having scourged Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified. Then the soldiers of the governor, having taken Jesus with them into their barracks, gathered together before him the whole detachment of soldiers stationed at the palace of the governor. And having stripped him of all his clothing, they threw around him a scarlet military cloak. And having woven a victor's crown composed of thorns, they placed it upon his head, and a staff made of a reed in his right hand. And having fallen upon their knees in a mock expression of reverence and honor before him, they mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And having spit on him, they took the staff and kept on striking him on the head with it. And when they had mocked him, they took off from him the military cloak and put on him his garments. And they led him away to crucify him. And as they were going, they found a man, a Cyrenian, his name Simon. This man they commandeered, that he might pick up and carry his cross. And having come to a place called Golgotha, which is called a place of the skull, they gave him to drink wine mixed with gall, a stupefying drink to deaden the pain of crucifixion. And having tasted it, he was not willing to drink it. And having crucified him, they distributed his garments among themselves, casting a lot. And seating themselves, they maintained a guard over him there. And they put above his head his accusation, of which had been written, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Then there are being crucified with him 2 robbers, one on the right and one on the left. And those passing by reviled him, wagging their heads and saying, "You who destroy the inner sanctuary and in 3 days build it, save yourself. Since you are Son of God by nature, also come down from the cross." In the same manner, the chief priests, mocking with the men learned in the Scriptures and the elders, kept on saying, "Others he saved, himself he is not able to save. Israel's king he is. Let him now come down from the cross, and we will believe on him. He rested his complete confidence upon God. Let him now rescue him, assuming that he has a desire for him, for he said, 'Of God I am son.'" Moreover, the robbers who were crucified with him reviled him with same. Now from the 6th hour there came a darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried out with a great voice, saying, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani?" That is, O my God, why did you let me down?" Now certain ones of those standing there, having heard, were saying, "Elijah this one calls." And immediately, one of them having run and having taken a sponge, having filled it with a mixture of sour wine and water which the soldiers drank, affixed it to a reed and offered him a drink. And the rest said, "Hold off, let us see whether Elijah comes to save him." And Jesus, having again cried with a great voice, dismissed the spirit. And behold, the curtain of the inner sanctuary was torn in 2 from the top to the bottom, and the earth was caused to tremble by reason of an earthquake, and the massive rocks were split into pieces, and the tombs were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised up, and having come out of the tombs after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. And the captain of 100 soldiers, and those with him who were guarding Jesus, having seen the earthquake and the things which had taken place, were exceedingly afraid, saying, "Of a truth, Son of God was this man." Moreover, there were many women carefully observing the details from a distance, such as followed with Jesus from Galilee, ministering to him the necessities of life, among whom was Mary the Magdalene, and Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee. Now evening having come, there came a man, a wealthy one, of Arimathea, his name Joseph, who also himself had become a disciple of Jesus. This man, having gone to Pilate, asked as a favor for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate commanded that it should be delivered to him. And having taken the body, Joseph wrapped it in clean linen cloth and laid it in his tomb, which he had cut in the rock, and in which no corpse had ever been placed. And having rolled a great stone against the door of the tomb, he went away. And Mary the Magdalene and the other Mary were there, sitting before the tomb. Now on the next day, which was of such a nature as to be the day after the preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees were gathered together to Pilate, saying, "Sir, we have just been reminded that the deceiver said while still living, 'After 3 days I am being raised up.' Therefore issue a command at once that the tomb be made secure until the 3rd day, lest at some time or other the disciples having come steal him and say to the people, 'He was raised from the dead,' and the last error shall be worse than the first." Pilate said to them, "You have a guard, be going on your way. Be making it as secure as you know how." And having proceeded, they made the tomb secure, having sealed the stone in the presence of the guard. Now the Sabbath having passed, as it was growing light toward the 1st day of the week, there came Mary the Magdalene and the other Mary to inspect the tomb. And behold, there occurred a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord, having descended out of heaven and having come, rolled away the stone and sat upon it. And his external appearance was as lightning, and his clothing white as snow. And because of their fear of him, the soldiers who were on guard were thrown into an uncontrollable trembling and became as dead men. And the angel answering said to the women, As for you, stop being afraid, for I know that Jesus, he who has been crucified, you are seeking. He is not here, for he was raised up just as he said. Come here, see the place where he was lying. And having proceeded quickly on your way, tell his disciples, He was raised from the dead, and behold, he goes before you into Galilee. There you shall see him. See, I told you. And having quickly gone away from the tomb with fear and great joy, they ran to bring word to his disciples. And behold, Jesus met them, saying, Be rejoicing. And having come to him, they took hold of his feet and prostrated themselves upon the ground in worship before him. Then Jesus says to them, Stop fearing, be going and tell my brethren to go off into Galilee, and there they shall see me. Now, while they were going on their way, behold, certain ones belonging to the guard of soldiers, having gone into the city, gave a report to the chief priests of all the things which occurred. And having assembled with the elders and having held a consultation, they gave a sufficient amount of money to the soldiers, saying, Say that his disciples, having come by night, took him away by stealth while we were sleeping. And if this should come to a hearing before the governor, as for us, we will persuade him, and as for you, we will render you free from anxiety. And they, having taken the money, did as they were taught. And this report was circulated among the Jews until this day. Now the 11 disciples went on their way to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had appointed them. And having seen him, they worshipped him, prostrating themselves on the ground before him. But some doubted, and Jesus, having come, spoke to them, saying, There was given to me all authority in heaven and upon earth. Having gone on your way, therefore, teach all the nations, making them your pupils, baptizing them into the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to be attending to carefully, holding firmly to, and observing all, whatever things I enjoined upon you. And behold, as for myself, with you I am all the days until the consummation of the age.